Hi, today I'm going to show you how to set up a database for Sage 300. The databases are SQL. I'm using SQL Express. Sage supports all versions of SQL. I am going to use Microsoft SQL Management Studio to set up the database because I found that the easiest way. And then we'll move on to the rest of the process. Let's get started. First, you need to set up the database in SQL using the SQL Server Management Studio. Notice the name of this database engine that it's connecting to. You're going to need this later to connect Sage to the database. So I recommend that you take a copy, a snapshot of that before you connect. Now we can see there's a number of databases. I've got company 1. I'm just going to right click on database, create a new database, call it company 2. Sage recommends that a collation sequence of Latin 1 bin be set up. Press L to get to the L's on the list. We're going to set up Latin 1 general bin right there, and OK to create the database. If this is going to have a different set of users and require different permissions from the normal system, create the system database as well in the same way. And again, go into options and define the collation sequence as Latin 1 general bin. Bin for binary. Okay, those are now set up, but nobody has access to them. So you have to go into the login section. If this is a domain network, you will have to add the domain users who are going to have access to the database to this list by right-clicking and putting a new login. I'm going to use the built-in users. We'll go to the properties section and then to the user mapping tab. We'll find the company we just set up, click it, and click DB owner. Must be a DB owner, or at the very least a data reader, data writer to have access to for Sage to use it. The other one we're going to do is sys2 and OK that. Those databases are now ready to use. The next thing you need to do is use ODBC to define the database location. I'm going to use the system DSN. It's the SQL Server native client. And this is where you use the location of the server that you saved before. Okay, we'll set up the company 1. There, those are set up. Now we can go into the Sage database setup and connect it to the databases. This is a Sage program. Enter the password. You set up the system database first, because that is where all of the passwords and permissions will be stored. We will link it to the ODBC that we just set up. If you're using Windows authentication, you don't need to set this up. Okay, next the company. Make sure you link it to the correct system file. And if you wish, you can specify a color. If that's not the color you want, you can select a color, any color, or build your own. We'll just verify those. Sage is able to read them. 0 errors found. Now you're ready to set them up in Sage, and that is done either by using database load to load a previously created company in, or going into Sage and picking the new company off the menu. It would be put on the menu by the database setup program that we just ran. There's company 1. It asked me for a password because when I used database setup, I specified that it was to use application security. Once I put in the admin password, it's going to tell me that there is no company. So I can proceed to activate the skeleton for the company now. It's very important to have this fiscal year starting date correct. If you are using, if your fiscal year starts in January, then put it in this way, because it's going to set up all the calendars, and the general ledger, when you activate it, will be based on these dates. It's important to put in this much information for the reports. The tax number is useful if you're having the tax number print on your invoices, and you want to make sure at a minimum that you put in the functional currency. If you're using Sage Data and Analytics, you must put in that information. You can change these other information, whether or not the program gives you a warning or an error or ignores posting to a locked fiscal period. If you're planning to email directly out of Sage, then you would have to put in your email server information and specify a valid account for it to send email. I'm going to OK that. It will create the administrative and common services data. From there, now you will have to activate the modules that you want to use. And the first one, of course, is the general ledger. All other modules rely on the general ledger. You can activate them all at once, but you won't be able to set them up properly until you do the general ledger. Again, we're going to fill this in and make sure that we understand that parameter. If you want to put in history, make sure that you leave enough previous fiscal years. If you don't, you won't be able to enter history beyond that date. It's all ready to be set up. I hope you enjoyed that video. Thanks very much for watching. See you again.